Scale the grand old face of the plateau. Some belong to strangers, some to folks you know. Holy ghosts and talk show hosts are planted in the sand. Beautify the foothills, shake the many hands. Nothing on top but a bucket and a mop and an illustrated book about birds. Seen a lot up there, but don't be scared. Who needs action when you got words? Finished with the mop and you can stop and look at what you've done. Plateau's clean, no work to be seen, and the work, it was fun. Nothing on top but a bucket and a mop and an illustrated book about birds. Seen a lot up there, but don't be scared. Who needs action when you got words? Many a hand cold scale the grand old face of the plateau. Some belong to strangers, some to folks you know. Holy ghosts and talk show hosts are planted in the sand. Beautify the foothills, shake the many hands. Nothing on top but a bucket and a mop and an illustrated book about birds. Seen a lot up there, but don't be scared. Who needs action when you got words? Finished with the mop and you can stop and look at what you've done. Plateau's clean, no work to be seen, and the work, it was fun. Nothing on top but a bucket and a mop and an illustrated book about birds. Seen a lot up there, but don't be scared. Who needs action when you got words? Welcome to another episode of the Apocalypse. And congratulations, by the way, for choosing the apocalypse. And since you have unwisely chosen the bloody apocalypse, you are in urgent need of a guide. Unfortunately for me, I am that guide, your humble guide, Nicholas. It seems, that we can fly the dictator of the third world shithole named El Salvador up to America. No problem. It also appears he did not simply have enough room to bring one more passenger. Instead, they chose to mock that would-be passenger that should be back in America today, instead of a worthless $3 third world dictator. Anyway, let's begin. Someone said in a comment today that I thought was quite striking, and I almost used as the title for this thing. The last bit of America died today. The last bit of America that was left died today, and I say, indeed, indeed. This is why. This cunt, who's not but a $3 dictator from a little shithole called El Salvador, he gets to be a White House guest and visit the president. And meanwhile, for weeks, there's an innocent man rotting in one of his death camps that he takes money to run, by the way. They couldn't fly him up. Everyone says we can't do it. We don't have the authority. I can't do it. We just can't do it. Meanwhile, that cunt made it up here from El Salvador, though, didn't he? To gloat and laugh at everybody that cares about this. On a side note, there's this place called the Lake in a story called Revelation in the Bible. It's a lake of fire, and certain individuals get thrown in there. And, I just told you that story for absolutely no reason. So, yes, that cunt was able to make it up from El Salvador, but they couldn't bring the innocent man that our government admitted. I don't care what your argument is, son. Anybody here, anybody out there. Our government admitted in court that that man should not be there, that they fucked up. All arguments now moot, son. All arguments now moot. The government said we shouldn't have sent him there. That's why everyone's yelling, because even they admitted it, son. So leave your argument at the public relations firm or at the keyboard, because it's worthless and moot. Our government said he shouldn't have been deported. A judge ruled that he shouldn't have been deported. Therefore, he is of protected status. Our dictator in orange face decided to ignore that and deported him anyway. And everybody thinks it's a big laugh. Again, there's a lake that I often talk about. On the banks of that lake, I wonder if all the people smiling now will be a smiling then. Just a ponderance I have sometimes. Oh, I went the wrong way. Let's go to the next thing. Oh, Donnie's all about Jesus and Christianity now. Did you know? Did you get the bulletin? And there's no way Donnie wrote this, by the way, but whatever, let's go with it. Donnie's now the protector of Christianity and Judaism. There's nothing nefarious in that at all, is there? Nah. This Holy Week, Christians around the world remember the crucifixion of God's only begotten Son, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And on Easter Sunday, we celebrate his glorious resurrection and proclaim, as Christians have done for nearly 2,000 years, he is risen. Yes, Donnie did not write this. Though the pain and sacrifice of Jesus on the cross, we saw God's boundless love and devotion to all humanity, and in that moment of his resurrection, history was forever changed with the promise of everlasting life. I'm not going to read any further. You get the point. He obviously had one of the spiritual advisors that's grifting their fucking face off, by the way. Write this. Neither of them mean it. Neither of them are sincere. It's all lies. They all of Satan. This the beast that's posting this. So what a mockery that is. It must have really killed him to even have someone else write this and post it. Why? Because he's the beast and his daddy's the dragon, the devil. That's why. And the reason he's now the defender of Christianity and Judaism is because he's the beast. He's using those two communities to get to an end goal he needs. What's the end goal? A temple on the Temple Mount that he can walk into or make about him in some way. That's the end goal. Once he gets that from these two communities, he will turn on everyone. That will be the moment. And all hell will break loose. In other words, any deal he has with the Christians and the Jews will be reneged upon at that moment. Once he gets out of those two communities what he needs. Donnie's famous for this. He's used your rubes for 10 years. You've been sending him your fucking Social Security money, all kinds of shit. A guy who walks around in diapers, in orange face, and has a gold toilet at home. You've been sending him money. Nobody gets over on you, rubes. That's after paying his golf bill every week. Sometimes it's a 4-day golf trip. While the stock market's crashing. But anyway, the point, I digress. The point is this. Donnie's all of a sudden a defender of Judaism and Christianity. Do you think there's an end goal in that act he's doing right now? I told you he'd be about worship. That's the end goal of all this. That's why he's the defender of Christianity and Judaism. The problem is the actual Jewish people that are siding with him are siding with Nazis and the beast. And it will go terribly wrong for them. The Christians that are siding with him, that's in quotes Christians, because no Christian would ever take this beast seriously. Any real Christian would see right through this thing and be, oh, no, I can't be part of this. This is the devil right here. I can't be part of this. Any real Christian would be that. But at the Christian community he's using right now, that say they are Christians and are not, using them to get to that end goal, the same reason he's using the right-wing Jewish people in Israel and Netanyahu, etc. Everyone thinks they're going to benefit the right wing in this, the right-wing Christian community, and that's in quotes because none of them are real Christians, not one. They wouldn't be down with this otherwise. I promise you. Maybe they'll change at some point when they see enough horror. I don't know. That community, again, they maintain their power and leverage in things by associating themselves with the beast, the Antichrist, literally. They don't care. It's on their team. Some of them recognize what he is, and they're still running with it. That will be held against them big time. So these two communities, that's the point I'm trying to make. The Christian community, that's why Donnie's all of a sudden the savior of Christianity and the savior of Judaism. He needs those two communities to get to that temple thing on the Temple Mount. That's for him. He needs them until then. At that moment, that's when he'll turn on them. When he says homegrowns, he's talking about U.S. citizens. He wants Bukele to build more torture prisons in El Salvador for Americans. Not me saying it, Trump saying it. Again, I told you all this stuff was going to happen once the first talk of concentration camps was mentioned. I told you where this was going. When we all saw the Nazi salute on Inauguration Day, we all kind of realized where it was going, right? So Bukele, this is before the actual press event began, and this was caught on El Salvadoran like video feed. Donnie and Bukele were standing there next to each other, both dictators of both countries, waiting for kind of the press event to start. And Donnie's kind of whispering to him, but the cameras pick it up. The homegrowns are next. The homegrowns. You got to build about 5 more places. It's not big enough. Well, it may be big enough if it's an extermination camp, which I've been wondering for a while, because no one really hears from anybody once they get in there. And again, Leon did the Sieg Heil, and no one in the right wing rebuked it. Donnie didn't rebuke it. Nobody. We just went on with our lives. So that tells me what this is. The fact that we don't even know if Abrego Garcia is even alive, that tells me what this is. How hard they're fighting to not bring him back. The president can fly up here, yet they can't bring the man. And no one wants to bring the man. Maybe there's no man to bring. Maybe that's why. Maybe it's an extermination camp. I'm just asking a question here, because we don't hear from the people. And until I see proof of life, that's the assumption I'm personally running under. I want to see proof of life. Video, audio, his wife saying he's alive, his lawyer saying he's alive. That's all I'll trust, because I know where we at in history, whether you do or not. And I knew the second I heard 40,000 people going to Gitmo, I knew what it was, son. And you should have too. Now we got a camp in El Salvador. They've kind of abandoned the Gitmo idea. We'll just send them down there and no one will ever hear from them again. And we don't know whether they're alive, dead, being exterminated, whatever. We have no idea. And here's Donnie admitting, guess what's next? U.S. citizens that are in prison. That's the next doorway that is open. That's the next group of people. And he's talked about this before. Now they're going to do it. Again, you know, it's bad enough when you have to accept your punishment for committing a crime that you end up in a prison. Now you can end up in a death camp in El Salvador who knows what happens to you after that. You either get killed by the men there or you get killed in some type of, I don't know, gas chamber or something. Donnie's sitting there. They're laughing about it, by the way. They're saying it in a very lighthearted tone. The homegrowns are next. You realize that's you, son, right? Every person watching right now. You're a homegrown. Maybe you do something next week and you get a charge and you go to jail for a little bit. Maybe you end up on a plane to El Salvador. That's what Donnie's literally talking about. And the last batch of people that went to El Salvador, we were told they're the worst of the worst. Then we find out 75% don't even have criminal records. Then we find out the government admitting we sent a guy down there that we shouldn't have. We made a mistake, and they're fighting tooth and nail to not bring him back here. Both dictators, Donnie and Bukele. I don't know. They're not leaving many doors logically open, are they? The only door I see wide open is Garcia's probably dead. And our tax money paid for that. I'm glad I don't got my name on that, son. I wouldn't want to have to explain that to the man when he comes around. I hope you got a good explanation, son. You're going to need it. I don't think it'll work, though. So enjoy it now, because you ain't going to be enjoying it then. And just like Ron Filipowski says here, when he says homegrowns, he's talking about U.S. citizens, and they're doing it in a laughing, joking manner. I told you this thing is the beast. Did you think I was joking? Do you think I want attention or something? No, that's your president after sending batches of people, some of them innocent, to an El Salvadoran death camp. There's a reason I use the phrase death camp for a while now. I'm noticing more and more people are starting to use it. Because I know when you put a man in a cell with 70 other people, some of them criminals, he's probably going to die. Because he doesn't even have enough room to exist, let alone take on the 30 men that are going to try and kill him. And that's the point, the torture. So you either die that way by the poor treatment, which is intentional, by the way, or maybe it's a straight up extermination center. I don't know. I don't see no proof of life anywhere. Do you? So one more time, I want to say this so you really take it in. These two demons were laughing and joking about building 5 new facilities and sending American citizens there. How many of you have been to jail in the past? That could be you, if your prison sentence was right now. And again, it started with the worst of the worst of Venezuelan immigrants. We find out 75% have no records. Some of them innocent, shouldn't even been there. The government admits one is innocent, still won't bring him back. Then the dictator that runs the death camp comes to our White House that this fucking cretin is leaving orange stains on the sheets in. And they laugh and joke about now the plan being we're going to send the homegrowns down there. That's you, son. Do you understand the seriousness now? Do you understand why so many of us were yelling for so many years? You will when you're on the plane. Don't worry. That's probably when you'll get it. But unfortunately for you, it's going to be too late at that point. Because little children, the right doesn't just come after liberals. Comes after all kind of people. How many Latin people voted for this? or support it, and like their wife's getting deported now. I've seen several stories like that. I like Trump. I thought this was a good thing. I didn't know he was going to deport my husband or wife. This a beast, son, and nothing proves again that he's a beast more than this. Two cretins destined for the motherfucking lake laughing about sending now US citizens as they just finished laughing about the innocent man that's rotting down there. Who knows, maybe he's dead, and they still laughing about it. That's the reality you're in right now. And even I am surprised by how quickly this is moving. I did not think by 2.5 months in I'd be saying these things. Is it an extermination camp? Can we hear if this guy's dead or alive? Are the hundreds of people that got sent to a concentration camp, death camp? I didn't think we'd be here already. I didn't think we'd be at the part where Donnie the dictator, Donnie the beast, Donnie the fucking antichrist is talking openly in front of cameras about sending U.S. citizens to an El Salvadoran death camp. Yeah, I didn't think I'd be saying that yet. I thought that would take a couple years. That means it's going much faster than even I thought. And I'm the shortest timeline guy. I'm giving it like 3.5 years, 4 years, something around there. And it's surprising me at the speed. Trump says he'd like to deport American citizens to a gulag in El Salvador. I'd like to go a step further. I said to Pam, I don't know what the laws are. We always have to obey the laws, said the convicted felon. But we also have homegrown criminals that push people into subways. We also have convicted felons of 34 felonies, frauds in business, adjudicated rapists we have, adjudicated defamers. And that's just the president's son. I'd like to include them in the group of people to get them out of the country. You mean U.S. citizens? And Donnie knows exactly what the law is, and Donnie knows exactly what his plan is. That's why he was joking with Bukele about it. He doesn't give a fuck what the law is. He's proven that over and over again. Donnie knows exactly what he's doing. There he is saying it out loud again. I don't know what the laws are, says the convicted felon. Trump has fully turned on Zelensky. Someone asked, would we be willing to sell weapons to Zelensky because Zelensky has offered to buy weapons outright? Because he's making a point. Donnie doesn't even want to sell him weapons for money. Yeah, he's not too much of Vlad's bitch, is he? That's why Zelensky asked the question. So the reporter asked Donnie about it, and Donnie did not like that question, and he's always looking to purchase missiles. Listen, when you start a war, you got to know you can win a war. You don't start a war against somebody that's 20 times your size and then hope that people give you some missiles. So that's Donnie's Judas take on it, because he just betrays everybody, doesn't he? That's all he ever does. First of all, Putin started the war. No one else did. No one else is at fault. Ukraine is defending itself. So that premise is an abject lie by the Antichrist. You got to know you can win a war. Well, Ukraine didn't start it, so there goes that argument. You don't start a war, somebody that's 20 times your size. Well, again, Ukraine didn't start the war. Putin, the guy that owns this orange bitch right here, that's who started the war. And then hope that people give you some missiles. Well, they're not hoping anyone gives them missiles. They want to buy some weapons from the biggest weapons manufacturers, biggest weapons dealers on the planet, America. And on top of it all, You ready for this part? Years ago, the United States went to Ukraine and said, if you get rid of your nukes, we got your back against Vlad. What is Donnie doing right here? Reneging on that deal. Ever since he won the election, we all know he's Vlad's bitch. He proved it his first term. So he's been fucking Ukraine over and trying not to help them and trying to help Vlad any way he can. And again, I expect to see the headlines one day, American weapons in the hand of a dead Russian soldier. I'm waiting for that headline. Any day now. Any day, don't worry. Or he'll just outright say it in front of the cameras. Yeah, we're going to sell Russia weapons. Fuck Ukraine. And, once again, he'll prove for the millionth time that he's naught but Vlad's orange bitch, and that's all he's ever been. Donny Krasnov since 1987. That was leaked on purpose. Breaking. This is the moment just minutes ago when Mohsen Madawi, a Columbia University student, was apprehended by HSI agents in the middle of his appointment to become a U.S. citizen. In the middle of his appointment to become a U.S. citizen. So the guy was doing what he was supposed to be doing. He wasn't here illegally. Yet they grabbed him anyway. He's a Palestinian-born green card holder, so he has a green card. But I guess he criticized Israel in some piece of writing or something. So that makes it okay to go kidnap him, deport him, just for critiquing something. Again, that's your reality now, son. Are you ready for it? Doesn't matter if you're ready for it. So another guy for criticizing Israel gets snatched up by the Gestapo. Again, Donnie really needs to do this act right now where he portrays himself as the defender of Judaism and Christianity. I told you why he's doing that. The temple at the end of the rainbow. He needs those two communities until a certain point. Then he'll turn on them and really reveal who he is to them. So we're going to see a lot more people get kidnapped for thought crime. Hope no one in your family needs to file for Social Security disability. Applications now require 200 to 230 days before an agent will review. Don't believe me? Call this phone number and listen to the message. Get angry. So obviously this person called the number to apply for Social Security disability. When you get hurt, you can't work anymore. 200 to 230 days. That's the response they got. So the plan to destroy Social Security is coming along swimmingly, I'd say. Thanks, Rubes. Hope you ain't living on Social Security. Be ye Rube or not, I hope you ain't living on that, because they out to destroy it. I don't need that one. Oh, this was the great news. That's the headline I woke up to today. That Bukele said, oh yeah, I'm not returning that guy. Fuck him. In our White House, he said that. Speaking in the Oval Office, Nayib Bukele says he has no intention to release Kilmar Abrego Garcia to the U.S. The question is preposterous, Bukele says. I don't have the power to return him to the U.S. Donnie says we don't have the power, and his lawyers say we don't have the power to bring him back. El Salvadoran dictator says he don't have the power to bring him back. I thought he was the dictator of that country. Why doesn't he have the power? Oh, he portrayed it as, since Donnie says the guy is a terrorist, I'd have to smuggle him in, and that'd be illegal. I can't bring him back here. You guys said he was a terrorist. No judge ever said he was a terrorist. The only people that said Abrego was a terrorist are people that represent the Reich. All destined for the lake. Not a one trustworthy. We can't believe a fucking word they say. No judge ever called this man a terrorist. Yet somehow in public discourse, thanks to you, Rubes, he's a terrorist now. Nope. He was just a guy with protected status. A judge said, since he's a refugee, since he's running from persecution there, I'm going to let him stay. That's all. He wasn't a terrorist. He wasn't a criminal. He wasn't any of these things that people are just making up out of thin air. And again, all arguments are moot, aren't they? When the government admits we shouldn't have sent them there, that kind of moots out all arguments, be ye bot, troll, whatever, or just plain rube. How do you get past that one? What mental gymnastic do you do? So Bukele basically painting him as a terrorist, as this innocent man, most likely dead, in my opinion, or rotting in the death camp. He makes jokes that he can't return him. But he's the big tough, the strong man of El Salvador. That's what I keep reading. Crime rates are all down. Yeah, we're trusting info reported from El Salvador by the dictator, by the way, jerk-offs. Anyone who reports any info on El Salvador, you're getting that straight from the Reich, son. That's not reliable. The only part I believe about El Salvador is they run in a concentration camp and possibly killing people. That's the only part I believe. Anything else from the Reich is worthless to me. Because that's a Reich down there too. That's the model they're using, son. Bitcoin, concentration camps, getting rid of judges they don't like. Bukele did all this shit already. Donnie's been doing it since he got elected. Removing every guardrail. What do you think Bukele did? Then he switched everybody to Bitcoin. Where do you think we're going? Donnie's opening up a whole bunch of camps over here too. But I have a feeling this is going to be the main guy and the main go-to from now on. Most people will end up there, and we'll find out in a week or a month or a year that people are being exterminated. And I wonder at that point, will anyone do anything? And, you know, the dictator can fly his ass up here, but he doesn't have the power to fly a Brago up here. And America, as big and tough as we all think we are, and Donnie says we are, we can't pressure little tiny third world El Salvador into giving this guy back. Yeah, he's probably dead. Harvard said, fuck off to Donnie. The university will not surrender its independence or relinquish its constitutional rights. Neither Harvard nor any other private university can allow itself to be taken over by the federal government. Wow, I'm surprised Harvard has balls. And that's from Harvard University themselves. They're saying that. Their account. Don't worry, Donnie got his revenge on them later. I'll get to that. Oh, again, Trump to Bukele, homegrowns are next. The homegrowns, you got to build about 5 more places. It's not big enough. And they said that jokingly as they laugh about it. People going to death camps in a third world country that they're not from. That's funny to Donnie. U.S. lawyers, including me, are ringing the bell as loud as we can about the fact that the Garcia case signals the end of our democracy. Indeed, what little was left of America died today. Again, that's what took place today. You witnessed it. It's so over for us. Our country is long over. And the last bit we had, right out the window today, what we saw. The vicious lies Trump, Bondi, Miller, and Homan have told about it underscore that they know exactly what they're doing. Yes, they all know exactly what they're doing. There is a plan here, and they're just trying to stave off the pitchforks as long as possible and see how much we'll tolerate. Abrego is a test for us. We're failing, by the way. We've failed miserably, actually. We've already failed it because he's probably deceased. And your tax money paid for that, son. Trump floats plan for undocumented farm and hotel workers to work legally in the U.S. Did you hear that, Rubes? You who all want all these illegal workers out of the country. Donnie, your hero, your messiah, owns all kind of hotels and resorts. He always has. So it's kind of interesting that hotel workers that are here illegally get to stay, wouldn't you say? Donnie didn't mean when he talked about the roundups for you rubes, the theater. He didn't mean he was going to round up his illegals that work at his businesses. You know that, right? And I worked in one of his businesses years ago. I saw the illegals there. So I know it goes on. That's why hotels are exempt. Donnie owns hotels, baby. That's his business. Resorts and hotels. Donnie's shitbags. So hotel illegals are exempt. How do you feel about that, Rubes? Farm illegals are exempt. How do you feel about that, Rubes? Again, this person's asking, isn't this the exact opposite of what his base is demanding? Yes, it is, isn't it? But Donnie never cared about you people. He just needed you. Now he's a dictator. Now he's Caesar. He don't need you no more. And he needs his illegals at his hotels, damn it. Donnie doesn't actually believe in anything. I mean, you thought he believed in something? Not when it's financially advantageous, son. El Salvador is a very small, impoverished country that consistently produces refugees and organized crime. Bukele is a very wealthy man that's pushed for cryptocurrency, bought over 34 new luxury properties. Crypto is favored by organized crime to launder money. You do the math. Yes, Donnie doesn't need a trail when he launders money for Vlad or they pass money back and forth. Donnie doesn't need there to be a trail, Rubes. And yes, that's a little history on Bukele by Anonymous. Oh, here's Leon while he's in hiding because everyone hates his fucking guts. That's an achievement, baby. I have to stop and say that, don't I? When you achieve that the entire globe for the most part hates your guts. One, it can only be achieved in the modern era with television, internet, etc. Two, you gotta put some hard damn work in to be this hated. And here's Leon. Let me give him to you. The pronoun BS is finally going away. That was silly. No, the pronouns did not go away. Leon and Rubes. This is what went away. What I've been talking about, what I've been telling you since you gave the keys back to Donnie. Your country is gone. That went away. America, over. Dictatorship now. Concentration camps, Sieg Heils, roundups of whoever they feel like, be ye citizen or not, shipped to El Salvador. So that's gone. Your freedom's gone. Your First Amendment rights are gone. You're actually freedom to walk the streets. They could just grab you and throw you in a van and ship you to El Salvador. Just all they got to do is label you the worst of the worst, and we all just go about our day. That's how it works here now. And then we invite the dictator up here to laugh about it. That's our reality now, son. So that went away. Your future went away. Your children's future went away. Everything you pretended to hold dear went away. Not the pronouns. Senator Chris Van Hollen requested a meeting with Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele this week to talk about Maryland father Abrego Garcia's return. If Kilmar is not home by midweek, I plan to travel to El Salvador this week to check on his condition and discuss his release. Is this going to go the same way the government people, the senator or congressman who flew down to the Jones cult? Is this going to go the same way? I hope not. But I hope this man follows through because they're not going to give us proof of life and they're not going to give us the man, Abrego Garcia, before the deadline. We already know that because he's probably dead. So I hope Van Hollen follows through and flies down there. But here's the thing. El Salvador could not let his flight into the country. They could tell him to turn the fuck around. Or they could just let him land and then say, no, we're not giving you access to the facility. You can leave now. So that's how they can handle that even as the senator goes. But I hope the senator goes because pressure needs to be on this because I really believe this man is dead. I don't have evidence of that yet. But I believe this man is dead. And that needs to come out as soon as possible. Pressure like a senator going down there could possibly get us that information in some roundabout, weird way. So I hope they keep the pressure on about this person, because this person will be the key to us finding out whether this is a death camp, extermination camp, labor camp, whatever the fuck they got going, whatever evil bullshit that Bukele takes millions of our tax money for, that Donnie and him are involved in. So I hope Van Hollen follows through. But again, Bukele could just tell him to fuck off when he lands. Oh, they asked Donnie about the arson attack against Josh Shapiro. The attacker was not a fan of Trump, I understand, just from what I read and what I've been told, probably just a whack job. No, he wasn't a whack job. He was a fan of Trump. He was a white supremacist. How do I know? Because he attacked a Jewish governor's mansion, like on the first day of, what was it, Passover or something? It was an anti-Jewish attack. Donnie can't say that. Donnie can't say it was a fan of his either, and one of his white supremacist cultists. So he went with the lie. And the second he said that, I knew the guy was a Trumper type person. I've seen the dude's social media posts. So before you all go chatting it up in there about what the guy's about, I already know what he's about. And this was an attack intentionally against a Jewish Democratic governor. And it's obvious. But Donnie don't want that getting out, that one of his people did that. So he immediately goes, oh, he wasn't a fan of mine. You know, I don't know nothing about it. He's just a whack job. No, he isn't. He's a result of the cult. And everybody knows it. And everybody knows it was an anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic attack. Donnie don't want to talk about none of that. The new MAGA action figures, man. I love all of them. I'm collecting them all. Carolyn Propaganda Barbie for Miss Levitt. We've got the oversized cross that comes with it. Oversized cross included. Business suit. American flag, microphone. Klan hood. Trump playbook. A pack of Cheetos. And everyone should grab one of these. Get it for your niece or your daughter or whatever. The new MAGA action figure. Carolyn Levitt version. Back to the El Salvadoran thing. We're going to find out sooner rather than later that the El Salvadoran super prison, which purportedly houses 40,000 inmates serving indefinite sentences with no yard time, is manifestly an extermination camp. And I'm terrified our reaction will just be a shrug. That's what I'm afraid of, too. I've been wondering this for a little while. People are starting to say it out loud. That 40,000 number, that's the exact number of inmates Donnie wanted to put at Gitmo. I wonder where he got the 40,000 number idea from. Seems to be going around in the Nazi death camp circles, like Stephen Miller and Hegseth and Donnie and Bukele and the demons down there. This 40,000 number. Yeah, I really hope, I mean, when we find this out, and eventually I have a feeling we will, just like this gentleman saying, I'm noticing more people saying it. That's why I'm reading it to you. It's not just, the dramatic crazy guy on YouTube saying it anymore. Other people are saying it because they're wondering too. And then there's this other person. That's what the Nazis did, and they didn't announce that they were doing it. Leon is the Nazi salute guy, and Donnie didn't rebuke that. And we are having open conversations about concentration camps. We all know where this is and is going. Indeed, indeed. Here's a reporter talking to Donnie amidst all the gaudy gold in the room. Are you considering deporting American citizens to El Salvador? Donnie, yeah, that includes them. You think they're a special type of people or something? Again, says the convicted felon. The reporter, yeah, I have a feeling the reporter does think they're a special kind of people. They're American citizens. You can't just deport American citizens. That's not usually how it works, unless you got a Reich with a bunch of Nazis and the Antichrist. So, I mean, technically, Donnie should be a jailbird right now. He should be in prison for many things. The stolen documents, trying to overthrow the government. Not because I don't like him. I'm not you, Rubes. I give real evidence for my theses. Overthrowing the government, trying to do that. The stolen documents, the rape, all kinds of stuff. The fraud, the 34 felony convictions. So in a just normal world, this orange thing would be in a prison cell. He'd be an American citizen, but he'd be one of the worst by your guys' standards. He'd be an adjudicated rapist, an adjudicated fraud. He'd be a convicted felon of 34 felonies in prison, U.S. citizen. And if, let's say I'm president and this was my idea, what do you think, Donnie's special or something? He's a convicted felon in prison. He raped somebody. He's convicted of 34 felonies. I don't care that he's a U.S. citizen. I want him deported to El Salvador to the death camp. What do you think? He's a special protected class or something because he's an American citizen? You see how that works? That could be you, and it is him. Because if we did the things he did, we'd be in a prison cell, but we'd be an American citizen. Therefore, under Donnie's logic, under the new umbrella of the Reich that always expands out to cover more people, it's expanded out to U.S. citizens that have committed crimes and are in prison. Donnie should be one of those people. Again, not because I don't like him, because of the crimes he's committed. That's it. In a normal world, that's where he'd be. And some other antichrist would be outside the jail saying, yeah, we need to ship these American citizen criminals to the death camp too. We need the space in the prisons for some other people that I plan on locking up later. And what, you think this orange guy who's in prison, convicted felon, is he a special type of person or something? That's what Donnie's saying. Yeah, that includes them. You think they're a special type of people or something? Yeah, they are American citizens. You can't just deport people to El Salvador. Again, remember the plan to buy the plot that the death camp is on down there and then lease it back to El Salvador. So it's technically American territory. Why do you think he wants to do that? So he can get around the deportation legality and send you there. That's why. So Donnie should be on a plane to El Salvador by his logic, by the Reich's logic, convicted felon in prison. That's Donnie in a normal world. He's already a convicted felon. If we added the prison part to it, which we should have as a society, he'd be eligible to get flown to El Salvador. Do you Rubes realize that? But you don't care. As long as the dictator has an R next to their name, you're good. That's the reason you lost your country, because you needed a king. As long as it had an R next to it. That's why your country's gone. Seems like a good day to remind everyone that Auschwitz, a complex of over 40 concentration and extermination camps, was not located in Nazi Germany either. That's something that I failed to remember. It's such an excellent point, isn't it? One of the most notorious camps, Auschwitz, wasn't even in Germany. Isn't that interesting? I think it is. Here's where Auschwitz was, in southern Poland. The Red Star. Germany's actually like up north, not even directly next to the camp. They wanted that far away from the Germans. And I'm sure they said just what Donnie says about the camp down in El Salvador. Oh, it's just a concentration camp. We're sending the worst of the worst over there. Guarantee that's what they said. Yeah, you got Czech Republic right next to Auschwitz. Germany is up north. The border's closer to Warsaw. Auschwitz was in Poland. One more time if you'd like to look at it. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? A death camp in another country. Sounds real familiar, doesn't it, Rubes? Here's the actual entrance to Auschwitz, one of the most evil places on earth. Here's another person. Again, this is them saying it. The El Salvador prison is an extermination camp, and the President of the United States just said he wants to send U.S. citizens there. I just want to show you the sentiment out there on the internet. And I don't go looking for these comments. They just pop up in my feed. Here's another one. Seems like the attempted assassination of the governor of Pennsylvania should be bigger news. But then again, we have an illegitimate president defying his own stolen Supreme Court. Indeed. That's Donnie's Supreme Court. He owns them. Now he's just defying them outright. Because they said that Donnie has to bring the guy back from El Salvador, and he just ignored it. And no information either, because it's classified. All we got is one representative from the Trump administration signing a piece of paper that, from what he's heard from his associates down in El Salvador, that Abrego's still alive, but he hasn't seen him. He's going by the testimony of someone down in El Salvador. So we have nada, zilch, as far as proof of life regarding this man. Nothing. So yeah, we'd think we'd be more about, this assassination attempt. You think Miss Bondi would be talking about that instead of Tesla vandalism. But that's not the point. The right doesn't care about a Jewish Democratic governor from Pennsylvania almost getting killed by a MAGA psycho. They care about people scratching up Teslas. That's the priority for the Reich, because Leon's one of the highest ranking members of the Reich. Leon did the Nazi salute as well. Sincerely, proudly. The war between Russia and Ukraine is Biden's war. This is Donnie Shitbag saying this. Not mine. I just got here and for 4 years during my term had no problem in preventing it from happening. President Putin and everyone else respected your president. I had nothing to do with this war, but am working diligently to get the death and destruction to stop. I'm going to stop right there. Okay, he's siding with Putin. He's blaming Biden. No one started this war but an evil man destined for the lake named Vlad Putin. He's the only one that started it. He's the only one responsible. Biden has nothing to do with it. And we all know Donnie's literally working for Vlad, so we all know where this is going. How hard is it to say that Vlad Putin started this war? Even you rubes can say that, right? Or are you that malleable and brainwashed that you can't even say that? Yeah, I don't think Ukraine invaded them. And I don't think Biden had anything to do with it. But Donnie wants you to believe that. Putin's not the bad guy. Donnie's not the bad guy. Joe Biden's the bad guy. That's where you rubes are at. Oh, here's J.D. Vance. He was at an event today. J.D. Vance just broke the college football national championship trophy. This is why you don't elect a crack baby. I looked at it more like this. Wherever the Reich goes, disaster ensues. And you saw the disaster in Greenland with JD, the couch fucker, and his wife. Now you see the disaster, JD trying to simply raise a trophy for a photo op with a team, a college football team. and he drops the trophy. He didn't just like fumble it a little bit. No, he just dropped them. The shit went everywhere. It was all fucked up. It was like a bad, I don't know, National Lampoon's movie or something. So here's JD in kind of the midst of dropping it. And I got one more picture quickly. This is him like actually dropping the motherfucker. It's kind of blurry, but you get the point. JD the couch fucker. After his historic failure in Greenland, he couldn't even handle just raising a trophy up for 2 seconds without breaking the whole fucking thing and dropping it all over the ground. You know how much that means to that team to have won that trophy, by the way? Oh, a 5.1 magnitude earthquake hit San Diego today. How lovely. Isn't that nice? If you think Trump is joking about homegrowns being next to be sent to a Salvadorian prisons, you do not know Donald Trump. He's been pining for this moment his entire life. You know who said that? Noel Kessler. He knows what he's talking about when it comes to Donnie. I also share that same thought. Donnie's been dreaming about being president since the mid-'80s, since the Oprah show. He's been a politician since that point. Every public statement was calculated in service of that. He's always waited for this moment. And he capitalized when a black guy got elected for 8 years and you people lost your fucking minds. So you figure we'll give the con man, the real estate con man, a chance, even though we know he's a piece of shit. Because we real mad a black guy who just was president for 8 years. We can't handle that. So just like Noel's saying, he's been dreaming of these moments his whole life, this Reich thing that's happening. This has been planned by a lot of people for a long fucking time. Like George Bush Sr. days, at least it goes back to, probably way further. And Donnie's been dreaming about his personal Caesarship and the ultimate grift, which is the presidency, where the fox gets to go into the henhouse, make the rules for the mob. In other words, clear all the rules away so the mob can act how it wants to. So yes, Donnie's been dreaming of all this his whole life, the death camp thing, all of it. He didn't have Hitler's speeches next to his bed for no reason, son. Leon didn't do the Nazi salute for no reason. Here's a reporter, and I couldn't believe how Donnie handled this. You said that if SCOTUS said someone needed to be returned, you would abide by that. You said that on Air Force One just a few days ago. And then Donnie jumps in. Why don't you just say, isn't it wonderful that we're keeping criminals out of the country? That's why nobody watches you anymore. He got all mad. I watched the clip. In other words, what is Donnie really saying to this reporter when she quoted him? He said if the Supreme Court told him, he'd bring the person back, that he respects the Supreme Court. Donnie said it. No one else. No one forced him to say it. So the reporter brought it up. And now all of a sudden she's a bad person. No, Donnie's the bad person. He's not keeping anyone out of our country. He just needs numbers. He just wants to send bodies down there. And Bukele just wants bodies because he gets paid for every one. Your money. What is Donnie really saying? Why don't you just let this grift go forth? You know, why do you got to point out when I grift and lie and cheat and murder? And deport people? Why do you have to point that out? Why can't you just go along with the grift? Why can't you just go along with the Reich? Why can't you just go along when I contradict my own words and promises and agreements? Why don't you just let me steal from you? Why don't you just let me lie to you? Why do you got to fight it? That's the beast, son, making you out to be the bad guy when you quote his own words. Regarding deportations to death camps. Why don't you just let me ship people to the death camp? on your dime. Disgusting what happened when that woman asked that question. What a fucking abomination. What a fucking embarrassment. What was left of America died today. Yes, a person named Scary Larry wrote that. What was left of America died today. Yep. Today was a very important day. I don't know if you know that. You witnessed the end of your country, son. Literally. The final nail. Where the dictator ignores Supreme Court rulings and leaves people to rot in El Salvador in death camps. Probably dead already. One more time, because I love to repeat myself. What was left of America died today. Yep. I can't argue with that. I can't disagree. That's the feeling I had today, too. When the dictator of a third world shithole who runs a death camp with an innocent man sitting in it can fly up here and be an honored guest in our White House because a criminal occupies it, unfortunately, thanks to you rubes. And an innocent man rots down there. And we all laugh about it. That's the end of America, son. Sorry. A lot of you voted for it. Don't complain now. The Trump regime has done more damage to the USA in less than 90 days than all global terrorist groups and militias combined have been able to do in the last 60 years. Indeed. And do you think that's an accident? This pace of dismantling, do you think that's an accident? No, it's not. Quite intentional. But in less than 90 days, indeed, it's moving even faster than I thought. Again, I didn't think under 90 days in, we'd be talking about death camps and possible extermination camps in El Salvador. Seriously. We are, though. So since this premise is correct, the Trump administration Trump regime did more damage in 90 days than all the terrorist groups combined in the last 60 years. One, that's true. Two, it's intentional. It took only 84 days to get to deporting citizens born in the U.S. to dangerous foreign prisons without due process. Indeed, you heard, the homegrowns are next. Those aren't my words. Those aren't Joe fucking Biden's words. Those aren't Hillary Clinton's words. Those aren't Bill Gates's words. Those are Donnie Shitbag's words, son. How do you explain that? You're cool with sending American citizens to El Salvador? Because they committed a crime? Don't worry, Donnie will help you sleep at night by giving you the phrase worst of the worst or something. That way you can go to sleep at night after you vote for this and pay for it. That'll help you feel better, right? The problem is that won't work in front of the man when he comes around. He's not going to care how well you sleep. He's just going to tell you what you did. And when you say, Donnie said they the worst of the worst, the man going to say, so? What's that got to do with you and me in this conversation? So again, it took 84 days to... Homegrowns are next. The homegrowns, you got to build about 5 more places. It's not big enough to the El Salvadoran dictator who runs the death camp. That's where we at, 84 days in. Are you happy with that, Rubes? You shouldn't be. The SCOTUS created its own monster that just negated the court itself. Yes, the Supreme Court that helped create this fucking orange monster that thought they had it on a leash. I've been saying this since day one. Everybody thinks they got the beast on a leash. No one actually does. Now the Supreme Court is learning the hard way that they don't have this beast that they helped create on a leash. That he's just going to ignore their rulings now. He just did it today, and he laughed about it. The dictator of El Salvador said, Mr. President, you have 350 million people to liberate, but to liberate 350 million people, you have to imprison some. Hitler said the same thing. Indeed. The commenter said that part. What the hell kind of third world dictator wisdom is this bullshit? Liberating 350 million people by imprisoning some of them? What the fuck? Only a third world bitch ass, $2 ass dictator would say some shit like that and try and pass it off as wisdom. Again, I wonder what the man's going to have to say when Mr. Bukele breaks down that wisdom in front of him. Well, I was trying to liberate everyone while I stole all the money and committed all these crimes myself and exterminated people. I was liberating them. You have to imprison some people. You know what God thinks of that? I've told you what he thinks of that. He who is for captivity, into captivity he goes. That's what he thinks of it. Again, on Mr. Bukele, we traded Europe for a guy that builds concentration camps for profit. Yes, and Ron Filipowski is commenting on this picture. Donnie and the dictator from El Salvador, all huggy, huggy. Yes, we traded our allies to ally ourselves or align ourselves with cunts like this. Putin, another dictator. North Korea, another dictator. The Saudis, I don't even know what to call them. That's what we traded all our allies, Canada, Europe, for this piece of shit. And some concentration camps that America gets to pay for, by the way. Remember that when you're on the plane in a year, 6 months, next month, who knows? Because U.S. citizens are on the menu now. That's you, son. That's all of us. So when you're on the plane, you'll have the consolation of knowing some of your tax money helped pay for your flight to the death camp. Because that's where all Reichs go, all dictatorships go. They go to that place. And again, we got the Nazi salutes to prove it in this one. That should have told everybody where it's going. Abrego Garcia was in the United States legally. A federal court ruled that he cannot be deported. Trump defied the court and deported him to an El Salvador prison. The Supreme Court unanimously ruled that Trump must bring him back to the U.S. Trump said, no, we're either a nation of laws or not. What say you, America? Well, we all know 77 million Americans say, no, we're not a nation of laws. If you have an R next to your name, you're allowed to do whatever you want, including send people to a death camp and send U.S. citizens to a death camp. Again, I hope the rubes realize some of you do go to jail. Some of you could get on that next list that's already out and available for everyone. The U.S. citizen that's in prison for something. Maybe you go to prison for something. Did you ever think about that? But don't worry, they're going to add more groups to where even if you're not in prison, they can come grab you off the street and ship you to El Salvador. You know that's where it's going, right? Right, Roops? It always goes there. That's what we all tried to yell and scream and beg you not to do this for 10 years. Because we all saw the signs of where this was going. If these people were ever given unrestricted power, in which they have right now. They're proving it. Death camps. So by paying our taxes, we pay for a Central American dictator who runs the 116th richest nation in the world to build 5 more supermax concentration camps slated to be filled with our countrymen and wholly innocent legal permanent residents of the United States. Is that right? Yes, that's right. That's what's going on. Fuck Europe, fuck Canada, the 116th richest nation, that's our friend now. If I understand this correctly, the U.S. president has launched a trade war against the world, believes he can force the EU and China to meet his terms, is determined to annex Canada and Greenland, but is powerless before the sovereign might of El Salvador. Is that right? Indeed, we can't pressure the 116th richest nation in the world to give us that guy back. Total bullshit. He's probably dead already. And if he isn't, they just don't want him telling the story of the brutality down there. But I'm guessing he's dead. I'm just waiting for the headline next week, next month. Oh, yeah, that's an extermination camp that U.S. tax money paid for. Oh, the DOJ filed some documents today after Bukele's visit, and they cite one of the things that Bukele said, and I'm just going to read that. I am aware that the president of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, was in Washington, D.C. today to meet with President Trump. President Bukele and President Trump held a bilateral summit this morning. I understand in response to a question regarding Abrego Garcia, President Bukele said, I hope you're not suggesting that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? Of course I'm not going to do it. The question is preposterous. So they're using that as evidence on why they shouldn't give the government or the Supreme Court or any court any information on this. They're using that as an excuse not to bring him back. What Bukele said. And again, the only people that ever called Abrego Garcia a terrorist were members of the Reich. Again, all destined for the lake. Every word they speak is absolutely worthless. They're complete wastes of oxygen, every single one. No judge ever called this man a terrorist. So Mr. Bukele is his argument has a false premise. No one of reputation, no one reputable has said Abrego Garcia is a terrorist. Only the dictator of El Salvador and members of the Reich here. Again, all worthless wastes of oxygen, all dead before they were born. Colombia student activist arrested by ICE at his appointment for citizenship. Again, at his appointment for citizenship. And let's take a moment on this. And I'll have a little ciggy while we're doing it. A little history lesson for the Rubes. And if only you would have paid attention or sought this wisdom yourself at some point. Maybe you'd still have a country. Maybe you'd still have a future. Maybe your children would still have a future. Maybe it wouldn't be over for the whole planet and everything. And again, it doesn't mean the planet's going to blow up. It just means a lot of people are going to die in World War III and natural disasters and all kind of stuff like that. You know, people are going to go to death camps. People have already gone to death camps in El Salvador. They won't even send an innocent man back. That's how bad it is. So, you know, we've all heard pieces of this little poem that came out of Nazi Germany. But it really gives the order from someone who understands the order of how people were arrested, who was first, second, third. And they went for the most extreme politically first, and then they went to the next one, and then they went to the trade unionists. Let's take a look at it. First, they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. That's the famous poem. A guy named Martin Niemöller is the name at the bottom. So let's look at the order quickly, Rubes. I don't care what you learned in your biased history class. I don't care what MAGA tells you. I don't care what oligarchs that want to subjugate you like Thale and Leon tell you. Hitler was a fascist. He wasn't a communist or a socialist. That had nothing to do with Adolf Hitler, despite the word socialist in the party name. That was to attract the socialists and the trade unionists. I guess it didn't work. That's why they had to be locked up. So the right-wing nationalist government of Germany, led by Adolf Hitler, which eventually became a fascist government, first they locked up the communists because they weren't communists, the Reich. Then they locked up the socialists because they weren't socialists, the Reich. Then they locked up the trade unionists because they weren't trade unionists or socialists, the Reich. Then they locked up the Jews, the real target they wanted to go after because it was all born of the devil. That's the real target. Not the first target, the fourth target. That was the real goal. These other people were just in the way. You know, the communists, the socialists, the trade unionists, the liberals. They were just in the way. That was the real target. This fourth one here. And in America, how did it start? Well, it started with the worst of the worst and rounding up brown-skinned illegal immigrants, then deporting in mass to a death camp under the guise of worst of the worst. Now the umbrella has come out wider. A new group has been added. United States citizens that happen to be in prison. Now they're deportable to a death camp in another country as well. Do you see how this works, Rubes? How new people keep getting added, new kinds of people to the Reich's agenda till they get to the real target? And the real target in Nazi Germany was these Jewish people. Do I expect them to start arresting liberals in government? Yes, I do. I do expect that to happen. I hope I'm wrong. Would Hegseth not do it? Of course he would do it. He wouldn't hesitate if he was given the order. Everyone knows it. I know that's your wet dream, right, Rubes? That a bunch of liberals get arrested like Hitler did. That's your wet dream, right? I know it is. Guess what that would mean for you? That the last guardrails were gone. And that the beast has straight up access to you. Wouldn't that be great? You saw what Hitler did for Germany when he tried this little plan, right? It ended up great for the Germans, right, Rubes? I know, the wisdom of the modern Rube will save America. Just like the wisdom of the German back then was going to save Germany, right? Nope. It's already too late. It's already over. We're already in the Reich. We're well into it. And we're not even 3 fucking months in. So one more time, little children, the reason these communists, socialists, and trade unionists were arrested and locked up first, before the Jews, were because they were the guardrails in the way. Like the liberals in government are now. Same scenario. Right-wing nationalist movement. White nationalist movement. The same as in Germany. The literal same thing. And we have a bunch of Nazis at the top. One of them does Nazi salutes. The rest of them spout Nazi rhetoric. So we've got the same literal thing that happened in 1939 Germany. I expect liberals to be arrested at some point as they follow the playbook. And the same guardrails there were back then are the same guardrails now that they have to remove to get to the real targets. What are the real targets of the Reich? Jews and Christians will be the real targets. And by Christians, I mean real Christians. The ones that ain't going to take the crypto and the mark and all that. Those are the real targets. These people that are getting harassed now, they're not the real targets. They're the doorway to get to you and me. That's what they are. But I should say this, to be fair. I looked up recently because I was curious. Maybe a month ago. I looked up, where is the largest Christian or Christian communities? Where are they? The actual largest, I think, is in Brazil. And the top like 3 are Latin countries. Not white countries, not European countries. They're the ones being persecuted first. I'm not saying every illegal that comes across our border, well, a lot of them have visas and aren't supposed to be deported as well. I'm not saying they're all Christians. What I'm saying is the largest Christian community is in the Latin community. And they're the ones on the plane first. Interesting, huh? So one more time, a right-wing nationalist movement, just like we had here, based on white supremacy and nationalism, same as in Germany, same thing we had here in 2015. I saw it rise, and that's why I was like, I can't believe I'm witnessing this. Aren't humans smarter than this? Did Americans learn nothing from what happened to the Germans and the world under Nazi Germany? No, they didn't. A good portion of America learned nothing. They're just mindless rubes, unfortunately. They proved it. Donnie Shitbags wouldn't be there otherwise. So who are the guardrails? Well, these are the guardrails, the same as in America today. The communists, the socialists, the trade unionists, the liberals. They are the guardrail. They are the party that's not taking money from Russia. They are the ones who will be locked up at some point, I assume. And the last part of the poem, then they came for me and there was no one left to speak out for me. That will be you, Rube, the random Rube out there. You will be the last one. And after you watched all these other groups get persecuted, shipped off to the death camp, then it's going to come to your doorstep. And there's going to be no one left. That's why Hitler arrested the communists, the socialists, the trade unionists. They were in his way to get to you. Same exact movement here. A right-wing nationalist movement, white supremacist movement ends up in this place where the rule of law is ignored. Fascism, there's an attempt to install a fascist dictator, and then arrests will ensue and deportations to death camps. Just like Nazi Germany, the same exact playbook. Except the modern version with crypto and AI images and Donnie in a temple in Israel eventually. The new Donnie action figure. Check them out. I love these. Let's see what he's got. Bought and paid for by Russia. King of Stupid. There's a stack of subpoenas. There's a golf cart. There's a fake little mini Art of the Deal book. There's a gold toilet. We've got a MAGA hat and another gold toilet. That's what you get. Lies and Abominations sold separately. The Bobo action figure. I love it. I love it. Bobo. Let's see what we got with Bobo. We've got a ticket stub for the Beetlejuice play, a mock ticket stub. We've got gentleman's lotion here, a mock bottle of, and we've got a little card that says Lauren is a handy helper. So that's what you get with the Bobo action figure. Here's the JD, the couch fucker action figure. Loving it. Hillbilly Vanilli Flip Flop Deluxe Edition. From Silicon Valley bootlegger to Appalachian patriot overnight. Pull string liar, reversible morals, fragile ego included. Couch sold separately. Here's another one, the Kid Rock clown suit, keeping it classy as always. The Kid Rock MAGA action figure. Genie that lives in a bottle of gas station boner pills. That's not the best joke, but they tried. El Salvador's leader says he won't return man who was mistakenly deported. Yes, they laughed about it. They had some drinks. And he said, yeah, I'm not going to bring him back because he's a terrorist. The Reich says he's a terrorist, and they're paying me to keep him. And he's dead anyway. Let's just go about our lives. I'm sure Donnie will respect this ruling, right? This happened today. A federal judge has halted Trump administration's early termination of programs that admitted hundreds of thousands of Cubans, Haitians, Venezuelans, and Nicaraguans into the United States. Yes, these groups that Donnie's shipping en masse to the death camps, they all had protected status at one point. Donnie took that away. Donnie took it away from these groups as well. Well, a federal judge says you can't take it away from these groups because the judge knows what's going to happen next. All these groups will be flown to the death camp. So they're trying to step in and stop that, obviously, before they get boarded on the planes. Here's the thing, though. Donnie and Miss Bondi and the rest will ignore this ruling, and they'll probably deport all these people anyway. Why? Because a judge already said once the flights to El Salvador started happening, he said you have to pause that and stop the flights immediately till this is looked into and investigated and I make a ruling. Well, Donnie and Miss Bondi and others all ignored that judge's ruling and the flights took off anyway. Flat out ignored the judge's ruling because we just got to get them numbers down to El Salvador in the death camp. And Bukele just has to get his American tax money. So I assume this ruling will be ignored since Donnie and Miss Bondi and the rest of them, whoever's in charge of that, Noam, whoever, ignored the last judge's ruling that said you can't continue these flights to El Salvador till I rule on it. So Donnie ignored that. I expect him to ignore this and just deport all these people anyway. That's where I think it's going. Nice to see a judge try, though. Trump administration freezes $2.2 billion in grants to Harvard after university defies its demands over campus protests. So the dictator's throwing a tantrum. A college didn't do what he wanted them to do and take away any programs and any policies that have to do with fairness and inclusivity. We can't have that in the Reich. We have to have hatred against minorities in the Reich. That's obviously the goal of this. So Donnie decides on his revenge tour to make an example of Harvard, and he's going to withhold $2.2 billion in grants because Harvard told him to fuck off today. Okay, this is about a farmer who voted MAGA and is now losing his farm. The Atlantic tells the story of Nicholas Gilbert, a farmer in upstate New York near the Canadian border. He had just gotten a shipment of livestock feed with a $2,200 tariff surcharge attached. That's $2,200, son. Gilbert cannot increase the price of milk he sells, which is set by the local co-op. He cannot feed his cows less food. He cannot buy feed from another supplier. There aren't any nearby. And getting it from the farther away would be more expensive. When he got the delivery, he stared at the tariff for a while. Shouldn't his Canadian supplier have been responsible for paying it? I'm not even sure it's legal. Now we care about what's legal after they voted for a convicted felon, right? We contracted for the price on delivery if your price of fuel goes up on your truck or your truck breaks down. That's not my problem. Tracks 4. Imagine thinking the Canadian supplier was responsible for the import tax levied on the whatever. Where's that at? Levied on the delivery. But Trump's voters really believed him when he said that foreign countries would be the ones paying his tariffs. It never made sense, but they believed it. And now Gilbert's expenses are so high, he may soon be out of business. He should have known better, but propaganda is a hell of a drug. Well, no, hate's a hell of a drug. And if this is him, if that's him, then I see the hate all over him. Again, I have to say to farmers, you all saw the tariffs during the first administration. You saw the pain it causes farmers. Some of you may have even experienced that pain, but that hate just blinded you, right? You forgot about all that. And just let me put my name on the Antichrist. Even though he cost some of my fellow farmers their farms, some of them committed suicide the first term. I watched all that. I watched Donnie and Leon said they're going to fire everyone from government. I watched Donnie talk about tariffs again this time, and I voted for it anyway. So again, I must say to you people, you obviously didn't vote for him for financial success for your farm or keeping your business. So there's another reason, despite what you tell people. I know what that reason is. It's called hate. Everyone knows why you voted that way. Every one of you that voted for this, we all know why, despite what you tell your families at dinner parties or whatever, your friends, your colleagues. We know why you really voted for it. As you're crying, again, I talked about a guy the other day, 2 days ago, losing his business. We all know why you voted for this. Now it's coming back to bite you on the ass after we all begged you not to do it. We all tried to talk you in not doing it. You saw the tariffs the first term. All you people that have China as a trading partner. The guy with the rims the other day that sold rims. This farmer today. You saw all this and you voted for it anyway. That tells me you voted hate. You didn't vote logically. You didn't vote for your own interests. Again, we all cared about you more than you cared about you. That's why we were putting the message forth. So many of us out here. Partially because we care about you more than you care about you. And your children too. We care about them more than you do. We didn't give their future away. You did wholeheartedly. We begged you not to. Again, a gentleman gets a $2,200 tariff bill he can't afford because he runs a farm. Yet he voted for his own demise. What do we do with that? We can't do anything with that. You're unreachable. You're worthless in the fight. You're just an idiot who begged to get played. You wanted to. What the fuck do we do with that? What do we do with the jerk off selling rims? Who's going to lose his business when he voted for his own fucking demise? What do you do with a rube like that? And if Donnie ran again in 4 years, would they vote for it again? Of course they fucking would. Because they're a lost fucking cause, man. Unfortunately. I don't want them to be. Here's another Donnie action figure. Felon 34. Because Donnie was convicted of 34 felonies. So we've got a top secret folder here, a little mock top secret folder. We got a Trump Bible. We've got a fake Diet Coke, a fake portrait of Putin on his phone. We've got a fake pack of adult diapers and a fake bottle of ketchup. That all comes with the Donnie action figure. Chocolate syrup sold separately. Here's the Pete Hegseth MAGA action figure. What a great likeness they got on Pete. We've got a divorces and affairs chalkboard, so you can chalk all those up. We've got a fake cell phone with the Signal app installed and ready to go. We got a Fox and Friends weekend mug because that's Pete's only experience. And an I Love the Atlantic t-shirt. Oh, there's a bottle of gin. I missed a bottle of gin. Get a little fake bottle of gin. Imminent strike packages sold separately. Venezuelans deported last week included 8 women who were returned to U.S. court filings say. Did you hear that? Venezuelans deported last week were included 8 women who were returned to the U.S. 8 women were among the alleged gang members deported to El Salvador. And then El Salvador sent them back. So it appears when some people go to El Salvador, they can be sent back. What a concept. Because the dictator of America and the dictator of El Salvador said they don't have the power to do it. They can't figure it out. Sounds like they figured it out before, though. Why can't they figure it out this time? Maybe because the gentleman's dead. Maybe that's why. Again, prison guards in El Salvador also refused a male detainee of Nicaraguan descent because that Central American country was outside the agreement the U.S. struck with El Salvador. So, in other words, well, that's not in the contract. You got to pay extra for Nicaraguans. That's the only reason he got sent back. Money. I overheard a Salvadoran official tell an ICE officer that the Salvadoran government would not detain someone from another Central American country because of the conflict it would cause, the detainee wrote in a sworn statement. Interesting. Might cause a war or something. Here's Miss Bondi, the most eagerest of beavers for the Reich. Jesse Waters says, the president was musing about sending some of the most horrible people in this country down to that mega prison. Is that legal? Miss Bondi, these are Americans who he is saying have committed the most heinous crimes in our country. That doesn't make it legal, son. That's not an answer. Miss Bondi, destined for the lake. And you people run with this. You people accept answers like that. Again, that could be you. You might get a charge next week, next month, next year, end up in prison. All of a sudden, Donnie and Miss Bondi, well, you're fair game to ship to El Salvador. So think before you laugh, son. Also know that the man's watching. And he's seeing if you're naughty or nice, and he's seeing if you're laughing about this. This is a test for all of us right here, what's going on. Miss Bondi is failing utterly. So's Donnie. Hopefully you don't fail. Because the man taking notes, don't worry. Here's some comments. Calm down, folks. It was just an attempted assassination of a Jewish Democratic governor and his family on the first night of Passover. It's not like somebody spray painted a dick on a Cybertruck. Indeed. Where's all the talk and outrage about this anti-Semitic attack by a Trump cultist? Oh, no, we're supposed to be outraged about someone painting a dick on a Cybertruck, right? That's supposed to be terrorism. Again, when they invoke the word terrorism for Abrego Garcia, well, we actually have a terrorist literally in the White House, a person who tried to literally overthrow the US government to be installed as a dictator. Do you remember that, or have we forgotten all that? That's a terrorist, son. So were all the other J6 people that helped in that effort. They were all terrorists too, technically. Why isn't Donnie getting shipped to El Salvador? Why aren't the J6ers getting shipped to El Salvador? Because there's actually an argument to be made that they are terrorists indeed. No one else is called Abrego a terrorist except for people in the Reich and the guy getting paid to keep him in a death camp. Here's another comment. Well, on one hand, we shredded our alliance with all of Europe, cut strong trading relationships, our role as a leader of developed nations. But on the other, we built strong ties with El Salvador, one of the poorest Latin American countries, so its dictator could imprison our people. Yeah. That's what's going on. Does it sound like an even trade? Does it seem like a worthy trade to trade all our allies, Canada, Europe, etc., so we could be friends with the dictator of El Salvador? So our citizens and our people can be locked up in a death camp? Does that seem like a good trade to you? Don't worry, it won't seem like a good trade when you're on the plane. And we come to the end. This is the man, Abrego Garcia, the man that people laugh about, who's in a death camp, who could be dead right now. We don't even know. No one knows, as we laugh. The funny thing is, if Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia was at the Capitol trying to overthrow the government on January 6th, Trump would have given him a full pardon. Yeah. That's all Abrego had to do, was betray America and rub some shit on the walls at the Capitol. And he'd be called a patriot, and he'd be given a pardon. I guess he should have went that route in life. And again, as far as a terrorist, well, Donald Trump's a terrorist. He literally tried to overthrow the US government. And if Mike Pence would have went along, if more people in the cabinet would have went along, if Fox News would have went along, we would have been in a dictatorship since 2020. Now we're in a dictatorship now. And Donnie's talking a third term. He's talking about deporting US citizens to a death camp in El Salvador. It's going great, right, Rubes? And again, as long as your dictator gets the third term, right? You're cool with it, right? Again, wait till you're the one on the plane. Because Donnie turns on everyone. I don't know if you've noticed that. The list of people, Donnie, and things and entities that Donnie has thrown under the bus, that list is infinite. You're on that list too. He's already thrown some of you under the bus. Get ready for more. You'll all be under the bus by the end of this, and you'll all be crying. So many people will be crying. That laughed so many times at what Donnie was doing. When they see the absolute death and destruction that comes. Because you put your name on it. You thought you knew better. Again, that's why your country's gone. Your future's gone. Your children's future is gone. It's all gone. And it's going to get worse than that. Again, Donnie's going to want everything. Going to want your soul too. Hopefully you don't give it to him. I want to read this one more time and then I'm going to go. Because it's true, it's sad, and it shows we're at a place in history where it says in the good book, they will call good evil and they'll call evil good. And that'll be the new normal. This is a perfect example of that sentiment. The funny thing is, if Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia was at the Capitol trying to overthrow the government on January 6th, Trump would have given him a full pardon. Indeed. Hey, at least we got to meet the the El Salvadoran dictator instead of the person that should have been freed, the innocent man. That's great stuff, right, Rubes? I can't wait to I'm not going to see it, but the look on your face when you're explaining this to the man. How you thought the dictator that runs the death camp visiting the White House was cool, as they laughed about this innocent man who's probably dead. And then, Donnie made jokes about building new camps and we're going to do the homegrowns next. That's literally out of his mouth. And then, Donnie talks openly about sending U.S. citizens. What do you think? They're special? That's what Donnie said, remember? You think U.S. citizens are special or something? They're protected. Again, that's a convicted felon saying that, who deserves a jail sentence and would be, in a just world, be in jail right now. And that means Donnie would be on the list, on his list, to be deported to El Salvador. Isn't that ironic? Anyway, until the next episode, have a wonderful evening.